It's been an odd morning this morning, and normally I hold up the three books that I'm using for this talk series, and they're all in my office in a briefcase, so I'm not going to hold them up. Most of you know what the books are already anyway. We are going through the 12 steps. The 12 steps originated in 1935 by Bill W. and Dr. Bob. It's the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. The reason we're doing them here is not to emulate an AA meeting, not to say that we all are addicted to drugs and alcohol. The reason we're doing them here is because they're fabulous tools to allow us to deepen into the truth of who we are. As it turns out, because there's all of this discussion about did Bill W. and Ernest Holmes know each other, and I've heard now from two different sources, and if you want some real good background, my understanding is Mike Kuntz knows the history of this. However, what I just read was that at one time they were changing books, and what Bill W. said to Ernest Holmes was, "Yeah, my book's easier to read than your book." So I thought that was classic and probably true. So in step 9, what it says in AA is make amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. In the 12 Steps for Everyone by Jerry Hirschfield, it's step 9 is we made amends to these people through acknowledgement and our commitment to change, except when such acknowledgement would harm them or others. And then Russell Brand, in his brilliant way, just makes it really clear and simple. Now apologize, unless that would make things worse. And then in A New Thought, she just repeats exactly what the 12th step of AA was. So to be in integrity with oneself is to know when you have done harm to another person, right? To really know that. It's not an argument. I had somebody, when I was talking about the list, because last week all you did was make the list. These are, and what I said was just list everybody you know and then go back and say, did I do anything to this person, known or unknown to them? And if you didn't, cross them off the list and see who's left. There's your list of people you want to make amends to. Now, here's the first thing. Amends are different than an apology. How many of you have had people say to you, "Oh, I'm so sorry"? And you know in your heart of hearts, yeah, no, you're not. Or, "I'm sorry, I made you feel bad." Really? First of all, you can't make me feel bad. That, I wish that maybe I did feel bad. However, you can't make me feel bad. That's my job. Thank you very much. So making amends is, there's a restitution attached to when you say to somebody, this is what I did, and this is what I would like to do to correct that error. So for example, when Russell Brand was in his disease and he worked for MTV in England, somebody at MTV, because evidently at MTV in England, I would love this job, you got a car that took you to and from work. He said he used that car for many different things other than going to and from work. And somebody at MTV said, could I use the car? And he said no. In fact, he was quite indignant about it. My car? How dare you think you could use my car? And he realized that it not only hurt the person's feelings, it wasn't really his car, and he was already using it for things that weren't appropriate. And so when he went to make amends, first of all, he had to find out where this guy was, because that was quite a while ago. So he searched him down. And then his amends was, I am sorry I did this, and as restitution, what I would like to do is offer you a car service to and from work for a period of time. So it's not, if you've stolen from somebody, the restitution would be money. Now, there is that little caveat at the end. Don't make amends if it's going to harm others. So that's a double-edged sword. Because when I first went through the steps, I wanted to put everybody in the category of, I can't make direct amends to them. I'm sure I'd hurt their feelings. That is not your cop-out place to go. What that means is if I have done something and the other person is not aware of what I've done, then to make amends to them. So let's say I've gossiped about somebody, and I have decided that that's not good character. However, this person doesn't know I've gossiped about them. Now, if I go up to this person and I say, I just want to make amends, I want you to know it will be a living amends that I'm not going to gossip about people anymore, and they'll be like, excuse me? Well, yeah, I kind of gossiped about you. Well, who did you gossip to? What did you say? Why would you say that? So you've now gone from this person who knew nothing to now you have just really thrown up all over them. So that's what it means when, if you are going to make things worse by making your amends, then make an amends energetically. If we're all one, you can write a letter, and if it's something that would hurt them, if you send it, then burn it. You still need to make amends, even though it might not be face-to-face. Face-to-face is the first choice. Second choice, face-to-face is the first choice. Texting somebody, emailing somebody, messaging them through Facebook. No. You know why you're doing that? Because you don't want to sit in front of somebody and say, I have really overstepped my bounds. And that is an easy way out. And I believe, as wonderful as technology is, and it is wonderful, we tend to use it as a scapegoat. How many of you, if you're my age and you have kids that are probably in their 20s, 30s, early 40s, and they think the way to talk to you is by texting? It's like, could you pick up the phone so your mom could at least hear your voice? It's this thing that we're not communicating with each other. And so I have a friend who shared with me something that her son had written, and I think it's important that I share it with all of you because it's why we're in community. And he is reading the Russell Brand book. And he was confused about why his life had turned out the way it did. He had great parents. He had a loving family. It's like, what happened? And he realized that when you go through your teenage years, you're pretty rebellious. And I just, the brilliance of what he came to. And he said, there was a time that it wasn't just your nuclear family. You had community. You had 50, 100, 150 people that were always watching out for you. Whatever you did, if your parents weren't around, somebody was there to say, hey. And so what he realized was he had his nuclear family, and he was rebelling against it, and there was nobody there to catch him. And that broke my heart. And that's why I think it's important that we are a community where people can come to and feel seen and heard. It's why we have care circles. It's why when something is upsetting to somebody, that they can either call me, they can call somebody in their care circle. We should be able to reach out to each other. And so amends kind of dovetails off of that. Because to make amends is to clear your side of the street. Now, I know there are people out there that I have offended that have done me damage. And I would really like to just point the finger and just let it go at that. Like, I didn't misbehave, or I wouldn't have misbehaved if this person hadn't done this. My side of the street. My amends is for what I did, the role that I played. Now, in some instances, I will absolutely tell you, even though I kind of joked about it, in some instances, I am not going to reach out to those people and have a personal sit down with them. I thank God that we don't live in the same state anymore. However, energetically, I have made amends more than once. Just when the person comes up in my mind, yeah, or something that I did, wow, yep, you're right. That was who I was, and I am so grateful I am not that person anymore. Making amends clears away all the muck so that you can really stand in that light, in that divinity, in that truth of who you really are. If you don't make amends, and this is the scariest step out of the 12. Does anybody disagree? Yeah, this is the scariest step out of the 12, and I think it's the one that is the most necessary. So you'll notice in the brilliance of these steps, they build on each other. Oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, I can. Okay, that one's a little bit. Now I'm at 9. It took 9 steps for me to go, okay, now I'm freaking out a little bit. And yet I promise you, if you really want to feel the power and the presence of God as you cannot skip over this step. You just can't. It is the only thing that is really going to allow you to fly free. And I started off by saying last week it was really interesting because somebody wanted to ask me about, well, I don't think I should have to make amends. I'm like, then don't. However, if you're arguing your point about why you shouldn't make amends, I would think that's the first person you want to make amends with. Because when you're arguing, what you're arguing is your fear. Your fear about really owning that wasn't in good character. That wasn't how I want to be. So what we teach here really is how we are in the world is how the world reflects back to us. And some of these things that you've been carrying around in your heart, and trust me, you have, whether you think, oh yeah, I did that, but it comes in your dreams, it comes in a thought when you're tired, they show up. It just shows up. And you don't get to say to the person, I'm sorry I made you. I'm sorry, this is what I did. Because that clears me and makes me a clear channel. And when you're a clear channel for the divine, you are the most powerful thing on this planet. And so that's why this step is so important. And unless you're Mother Teresa, maybe the Dalai Lama, and maybe even they need to make amends. We all have people in our lives where we weren't the most loving or the most giving or whatever words we want to use, right? And so to really recognize that. Now, there is a thing about making amends to somebody and they don't want to hear from you. And so there's an example in Russell Brand's book. And he had a stepfather, and evidently in one of his other books, he tore this man apart. And it was published, and millions of people bought the book and read about Russell's side of the story, how he felt about this man. And later, he realized, first of all, he got to the point that he thought, well, wait a minute. That book was published. Everybody read it. I am sure some reporter in England found where this man lives and went to his house to get his side of the story. He never said a word in his own defense. Never said a word. And when Russell was ready to do his step 9, he said, there is a way the universe makes people show up in your life. So he was doing work at a hospital. He walks in the first room he goes in to see a young patient. His stepfather, it's ex-stepfather, his stepfather's nephew is there with his son. And so he says, oh, could I have his number? He called, he texted, no response. So he wrote a letter just to let him know how sorry he was for the damage he'd done by printing horrific stories in a book that was published and realizing that most of that was just his own angst and needing to blame somebody. He has never heard from that man. But the amends isn't about the victim. The amends is about you, because you are as big a victim as the receiver. And that's what you have to understand. It's forgiveness work at a whole nother level. It is really saying to yourself, if I want to be that person, if I want to stand up, if I want to live my dreams and really be big and be bold and be out there, I got to clear this up. Otherwise, it's dragging stuff around with me. Now, I don't know if any of you are interested in doing this, and I forget which of the 5 books I'm reading had the process in it, but it's a Buddhist process. And you buy a 10-pound bag of potatoes, and you throw it out on the floor, and you start to write people's names on them, of people that you have damaged or hurt, that you haven't made amends with, and you know it. And then you put all of the potatoes that have names on it around in a sack. And you get to carry that sack with you every place you go. You go out to eat, your bag of potatoes sits next to you. You fly somewhere, the bag of potatoes goes in the seat in front of you. And you know what's going to happen to the potatoes the longer you don't make amends? What happens to potatoes? They start to rot. And they smell. That's what's happening to your insides when you don't make amends. And the way you get the potato out of the bag is you make amends to the person, either face to face, which is preferable, or you make amends to the person by writing a letter, or you sit down in a meditation and call that person forward and make amends energetically, because by contacting them or writing them would do more damage. So we're not here to do damage. We're here to let our souls fly. And the way to let your soul fly is to get rid of all those dang potatoes. Have you ever carried around a sack of potatoes? I had a friend that did 50 pounds of dog food because he wanted to lose weight, and it was 50 pounds he had to lose. So he just carried that around with him to remind himself. So the potato's the same thing. Reverend Susie used to say, put rocks in your pocket, not little ones. Big rocks in your pocket. And then when you make amends, you might even hand the person the rock and say, you know, this is my gift. I release you because now I've released myself. And so this is about the freedom and the joy and the coming home to who you are. Because all of that stuff, all of that perceived damage that you have done, all that's doing is a big weight on you. That's why you carry the potatoes. It's a symbol. It is just a big weight on you. And the way to let it go is to make amends. And a living amends is, I was not a great mother. My living amends is to be the best grandmother I can be. And both my boys know that. And so that's how you make amends. And you have to ask if it's okay, if the amends fits with the person, if you're talking to them directly. Or you can even ask them, how could I make this right? What can I do? Now, if they ask you for $1 million, you can say, yeah, funny. This is, but still, this is a process. And so what I'd like you to think about this week, whether you do the potatoes or not, is where is it in your body? And you're the only person that knows this. And I can tell by looking at some of you that you absolutely know there are people out there that you've been carrying around in your heart because you know that you owe them an amends. I can see it. I can see it in your eyes. And I hope you can see it in mine, because I'm not done making amends. And I don't know, maybe we never will be. Just be awake and aware. And I promise you, when you do this, you're going to feel lighter. Because if it's a 10-pound bag of potatoes and you clear up all of that and you're 10 pounds lighter. Best diet in the world, right? You won't have a heavy heart. You won't be afraid to look people in the eye. And all of a sudden, you'll realize all of the things that you've wanted to manifest in your life are starting to manifest quicker, because you're not bogged down with energy from guilt and shame and blame. So that's step 9. Isn't that fun? I'm excited to hear about the stories, because I'm sure some of you will have them. Stories about how this worked for you. And don't forget, if the person doesn't want to talk to you, that's okay. You have to respect their boundaries. You don't go barging into somebody's house and think that you just get to make amends because you're going to feel better. If they're like, they don't return your calls, they don't answer your texts, send them a letter. And if you know in your heart the letter would do more damage, sit down in a meditation, call them forward, and make amends in the spiritual realm. We're all one. We're all connected. So it's going to work. Just don't use that as your go-to. There are people that you need to sit down with face to face and make amends. And that's a gift you give to yourself. I promise you, it's the biggest gift you'll ever give to yourself, because it frees up your heart. So let's pray. Father, Mother, God, Spirit, right here and right now, I just feel that love. That love is God as me. God is everybody sitting here. I feel that love as it opens up our hearts and we say yes. I know for each and every one of us that we let go of all the stories that we have created or that have been created for us, and we stand in the absolute truth of who we are. We are God in form. We are powerful. We are love. We are compassion. We are joy. And we aren't separate from each other, even though on this realm it looks like we are. We're all one. We are part of that one life that is God's life, that is our life. And so knowing this truth, holding on to this truth, I speak my word for everyone here to be courageous. To look at your list of people and be courageous and reach out if it will do no harm. And make amends. Offer a restitution of any size and any form that will free your heart and allow you to be more connected to your truth. Truly allowing your soul to sing. Truly allowing your heart to open wider. Truly connecting heart to heart, soul to soul, mind to mind with that which always has been, with yourself and with everyone and everything around you. That is why we're here. And so I give great thanks. I give great thanks for this step, this integrity, because it takes a lot of integrity to be able to stand and witness yourself being humble, being courageous, and being present to someone else. And so I turn all of these words over, knowing that as it is spoken, it is done. The universe has said yes to each and every one of us. And in that yes, we say yes right back. We are ready. We listen for the hows that this are going to happen, how it's going to show up in our life. And in the meantime, we let go. And when we let go, we allow God to do the work. And in that I am grateful, and together we say, and so it is. Namaste.